Welcome back to the Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all of your favorite ongoing Japanese manga. This week we are talking Ichi the Witch Chapter 1 as we take back the artist of Act Age and welcome the writer of Iruma-kun to Weekly Shonen Jump. We're also going to make one last desperate attempt to get people to read the best manga you probably aren't reading right now, Go Go Loser Ranger. We're going to go over Chapter 152, and we are kicking into high gear with a new fun arc and the return of a past fan favorite character in Sakamoto Days, Chapter 181. All that, manga news, and more coming right up. Hello again, my name is Bruce. I'm the proprietor of the White Gray Black YouTube channel, and this week I'm joined again by my constant co-host, Gautam.
Hello, hello.
A special shout out and thanks to our Patreon subscribers, Yaji Black. If you want to have your name read at the top of the episode, see some bonus content, support us, check out patreon.com/WGBmanga. Keep in mind, it's only $3. All right, let's get into Ichi the Witch. This is there's a lot of buzz about this one online, I would say. Story by Osamu Nishi, who's the writer of Iruma-kun, which has been ongoing for almost 10 years now, I want to say. They're closing in on chapter 400-ish. And then art by Shiro Usazaki, who you may remember about 3 or 4 years ago from Act Age, which was a incredibly popular series over in the West. The writer of that did some bad things and got arrested, so that was shut down. And
it was a shame because the artist was did nothing wrong and got their manga canceled, even though they were really good. So it's nice to see kind of them get another crack at things. Yeah,
and I think that, as we'll see, I think the art is one of the strongest points of Ichi the Witch. Gautam, how did you feel? Give me your sort of initial overall thoughts real quick on Chapter 1 of Ichi the Witch.
Yeah, so this was a weird Chapter 1 for me because there's clearly talent behind it. I love the art, like you said. I liked the characters and the gags and the character designs, but I thought it was a really clumsy first chapter. Maybe it's by proxy of trying to get all of the exposition and world building out of the way, so they don't have to do it over 5 chapters or whatever. It's kind of just setting the scene. It felt like more of a chapter 0 than it did a chapter 1.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How about you? What'd you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely liked, I like Ichi, the main character. I like the art. I like the witches that show up. I think all the world building they do is good. There's just so much of it in 65 pages or whatever. And it's so jam-packed that it feels very explainy, right? It feels there's not really a whole lot of show don't tell. There's a lot of just telling you, here's Ichi's backstory, here's what witches are, here's how witches get powers, here's what this witch is. It's very just, we're going to tell you everything, and then move past it so that we can fit all of this into chapter 1. And yeah, I think that made it feel, a little worse, because I can tell that the bones of it are good, but it felt like it was just rushing through all this stuff, like you said. I really thought that there was a nice breaking point in the middle, that this could have been 2 chapters and felt, given a little bit more room to breathe, and it would have worked a lot better. But yeah,
I'm hoping it's like what we said. They're just getting this stuff out of the way, but this is also me being a little biased about the talent behind it, that I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, because I think if this was just chapter 1 by I think an unknown, I wouldn't be so generous with my reads, because I don't know if you felt this way, Bruce, but it was the first chapter was okay, here are witches, an explanation on how witches get their power. Now on to the next scene. And it's in a different locale. It's here's the big demon. Here's what the demon does. On to the next scene. It's the scenes didn't transition naturally. It was just exposition. Okay, here's exposition on the next guy. Now here's a little bit of talking. It's like that over and over.
Yeah, well, and we won't belabor the point too long, but there's an idea of trusting your audience to sort of either understand something that you present and don't give any details on, or to understand that you will explain it later. And this chapter completely lacked that trust in the audience, right? This chapter assumed that oh, if I show you witches, you're not gonna understand what a witch is at all unless I explain, or you're not gonna explain what's going on during the fight if we don't explain to you exactly how witches get powers and show you it in a little flashback, and then explain to you who this witch is, and then explain to you, why Ichi is in the situation. I just felt like it didn't trust the reader, which it strikes me. And I had heard that the first chapter, I saw some comments that the first chapter of Iruma-kun was kind of similar to this. I don't know how long it's been since you've read chapter one of that.
It was.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't like the beginning. I guess it didn't capture me. Iruma felt generic at the beginning, but it's when we kind of got into the actual mix of things where the writing kind of shone. I think the author is trying to get all the exposition out of the way so they can get into the actual character stuff that they're strong at. But
I hope so.
Again, this is just based on me reading Iruma. So, we'll see.
Yeah, and I do think, again, we're kind of going in on this is overly explaining and very straight to the point. I don't think this was a bad chapter at all. I think this was better than a lot of chapter ones we've gotten in the past 3 or 4 years, but it just certainly was not. It was, I think my expectations were set higher because I knew who was attached to it. I know how much you love Iruma and how popular that series is, and I thought, oh, this is going to be an awesome chapter 1, and it had a lot of short.
I thought it was kind of bad, to be honest. But like, I think it sets itself up to be good in the rest of the chapters.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was a very good chapter 1.
Yeah, and enough people are talking about it that I think it will still, if it continues on an upward trajectory, I think it will still be popular. So.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Cool. So let's get into the chapter just a little bit and go through kind of what it's doing in there. So we open up and we're introduced to Ichi. He is a sort of hunter on this mountain, like a kind of a wild man who lives near a town. We see him here kind of like, coolly being set up killing a deer by just like hiding in a bush and then going and selling the deer in the market. It has this funny stuff, which this feels very Iruma to me from the couple of chapters that I've read, where it's just kind of like, oh, there's a little joke of like the deer was going to poop on me or something.
Or the deer did poop on him.
Yeah, I guess it did.
Just commitment to the hunt.
Yeah. We also see here, I didn't grab a page of it, but there's like these girls in town who are being loaded into a carriage that are like, oh, we're off to witch school. And it doesn't really explain that. So I thought, oh, cool. It's just going to tell us that we're off to witch school, and it's not going to say too much about it. We get Ichi kind of here goes back to the mountain. And it gives us a little backstory, which is, to be honest, pretty generic. Like very much like I was left alone with a knife and I had to learn how to survive for myself. And that meant that I was a wild child. But I did survive.
I don't think we get like a ton more on the backstory going forward either, because Iruma's is kind of vague as well. But this, I love Death for Death. It's a badass sounding thing.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of a.
It's like Hunter Code.
Yeah, it's kind of a theme thing, and it's one of those interesting character building things to, sort of show and explain to you that this is not that this kid is not just a mass murderer. He's not willing to kill anything that gets in his way or whatever. He basically says like, if you're not trying to kill me, I'm not trying to kill you. It's a kind of self-defense type measure. So he will hunt things, and then if you're trying to kill him, he will fight back. So that paints him in a better light than I'm a hunter and a murderer. So
what's kind of funny about that is that he sees this legendary beast on this page over here in this next page.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, it's powerful and I want to hunt it. And he runs away, because he'll only hunt it if it tries to kill him because of his code.
Yeah.
But he's like trying to entrap it into like being hostile so he can kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny in that he really just wants to kill it, but he's like, okay, let's do a workaround on my code over here instantly. It's kind of great.
Yeah, maybe he just sets up traps to like, well, if it does try to come and kill me, it'll be trapped, and then we'll see how it reacts. And if it tries to kill me, I'll kill it back. But yeah, it is kind of funny.
That's like kind of a loophole. It feels like it's not like actually he's like seeking it out and agitating it. And
a little bit.
Shit, it wants to kill him. Yeah,
for sure.
It's just a funny little thing.
Yeah. So this to me kind of felt like it would have been a good chapter 1 or chapter 0 cutting off place, maybe. Like the beast in the forest kind of wakes up the girls are like, oh, traffic stopped. And then we get the witches start to show up. Like, ending on this page would have been like, oh, cool, I'm really interested. Like, I know who the main character is. There's this interesting plot idea planted with the beast in the woods, and witches are here. And I understand the series is called Ichi the Witch, and that's going to be important. I thought this part of the chapter was actually pretty good. It's kind of past this where it starts explaining things back to back to back. But I do...
You know what? I think I know what that is, Bruce, is this is like a very similar start to another manga that got axed in Shonen called Red Hood, where they spend like 6 chapters with a witch and a hunter and a monster, right? And everyone's like, this took way too long, even though it's interesting.
Okay. Yep.
And it got axed in like 19 chapters. But anyway, I think that's why they rushed this part.
I mean, well, and I definitely do think Weekly Shonen Jump is more, I guess, less willing to take things slowly and more willing to push their authors to like move quick at the start. Your volume 1 should have, like 3 complete arcs in it, chapter 1. So, but yeah, visual design here, I love. High fantasy is back in manga. And if you didn't notice, Frieren, Delicious in Dungeon, this, and a couple other things. Big Hats.
I love Big Hats.
Witch Hat Atelier, that was the other one. If you like Big Hats, go read Witch Hat Atelier. They're the most interesting part of that, maybe, for me.
Play Dark Souls. There's a character named Big Hat Logan.
Yeah, Big Hat Logan. That's true. We also, their names are cool. Japan a lot of times often fumbles trying to make interesting non-Japanese sounding names. We're reading Gachiakuta, and there's some...
I've also read Gachiakuta, that's what I was going to say.
There's some mouthfuls in that one that are like, that would never be a real name anywhere, but it sounds wild. But these I think are good names. I think Descaras is a neat name, and this is Monagold or Moangold is cool. I think the visual here of her and all the mirrors around her is neat.
I think it's a cool like interpretation on like a seer oracle, like whatever she is. She's like the intel type role.
The man behind the desk is the trope.
Yeah, known as, exactly. She's the woman behind the desk in this situation.
So here we start getting explained sort of like, it very quickly introduces like, here are witches. Magic is real. Here's how magic works. It's like living magic called magics with a K. First contact with humanity years ago. And basically it's just like, there's this magical water creature and it tells you kind of a task that you have. And if you complete the task, it gives you its power to, like the water one, for instance, gives you the power to control water.
The water one seems so much more reasonable than the other ones that they mention in the examples, which is like hold a bonfire for 1 hour.
Water's just like, drink a lot of water. It's like, thanks for keeping my health up, Mr. Water Magic.
Yeah, one is our Hydra homies and the rest are our suicide, like walk 1,000 miles
against the wind. Yeah,
it's fucked. Yeah.
But yeah, so it says currently there are magic hunters who've overcome countless grueling trials and acquired powerful magic. People call these hunters witches.
That's a cool page on the next one.
Yeah.
Very sick.
Basically what we have here is Lady Descaras, who is this kind of it is implied, I think, that she's sort of like top of the magic system. Yeah, she's maybe not the strongest, but a very, very strong one who kind of goes out on missions looking for more magics to add to her repertoire.
I think the demon guy said she was the strongest, but who knows?
Yeah. So she ends up fighting the monster creature on Druid Mountain. Sort of takes him down and gets him. Yeah, takes him down and gets him pinned under her sword. And he kind of starts, the magic creature starts like monologuing and is like, Descaras, you must have sensed it by now. The feeling that something's off. Have you ever wondered how I've survived 1,000 years without a single witch ever acquiring me? Let me enlighten you with the devastating truth. It's like, no woman can scratch my heart. So this is the inverse of no man can kill me from Lord of the Rings, the Witch King or whatever, where it's like, I am no man. And it like literally the same thing happens here. Where Ichi walks out is just, and I love this panel at the top left. I think this is another sort of Iruma like goofy thing,
goofy little thing.
He's like, where did you come? Where did you come? He's just like, I'm a man, huh? He's like, I said I'm a man. This is kind of a cool. It's more of a low key moment than like a high action moment. Like I think some artists would have done this where it's like Ichi jumps out of the he like jumps out of the woods and attacks immediately and says, "I'm a man." It's like this big high action thing. I like that it's a bit more kind of subdued, where he like walks out cautiously and is like, "I'm a man." Like, "Oh, you just told me that a man can kill you, and I, can feel your hatred for mankind. I can feel your death, so I'm gonna death for death you."
Yeah.
And so he baits an attack, gets him in this trap, where he's like, what the heck? It's like this. This is funny because I'm like, isn't this like a massive magical creature? Like, it can't do anything about it, like a rope trap.
It's kind of funny because it said like in a panel before that it like steps through mountains and stuff. Like it leaves like a big footprint through a mountain.
Yeah, like destroys entire swaths of land, and it's like, whoops, a rope trap. I can't get out of it.
That's okay.
And he just kind of flips off. I think that this is a little bit of that sort of goofy earnestness that you've told me about how Iruma works. I think that's obviously going to be present here too. I think it's just a little bit of like, haha, he set a trap and it's made of ropes and who cares? It's kind of goofy and it means our good guys win, so that's what it is.
I think it's also like a little goofy because he looks like very scary in the top panel, and he has a heart in his eyes because of his lust for murder.
Yeah,
he entrapped this creature in two ways, in that he baited it into attacking it, and then the rope trap, and now he's gonna murder it. This dude just loves murder.
Yeah, I will be interested to see how this develops going on. So
I hope they keep. I think I'm reading Ichi as a little bit unhinged, and I hope that is like a through line where he's just like a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
with his like,
I do think
with his little schemes.
Yeah, I do think it'll be fun. I think by the time we get to the end of the chapter, you'll see. I think it's obvious he's going to like go to witch school, and it's going to be that kind of setting. And I think it will be more fun to have a little bit more of a fish out of water type story, where it's like he grew up in the woods, murdering stuff to eat every day, and these girls are obviously like high class, like trained, live in castles and stuff. And so I think that fish out of water juxtaposition against the like rich girl thing, if he keeps up being a little bit deranged and stuff, I think that that'll be really fun. So
that would be really fun. The author just has to do a different kind of fish out of water situation than Iruma. But I think Ichi is set up for it. Ichi is very weird in a different way. Yeah.
So Ichi obviously like strikes the killing blow here. He gives him like death for death ready. Again, art in here is great. I thought the action was good. I don't Act Age, from what I read of it, wasn't super action packed, I would say, but I think the action in this was pretty good. So that's good to see. And then basically, as soon as he kills the sort of demon thing, he gets put in
magical girl.
I can only describe as like a magical boy outfit, basically a magical girl outfit, but for a boy, which I think looks really cool. I really like the design of this actually, which is very like, I think that it invokes his kind of wild, hunter nature with kind of like bird feathers on the legs, and he's got like a sort of a cape that looks like it's made of wool or hair or something.
Stardust. So.
Yeah.
I like all the hearts too, because it's still a magical girl thing, and of course the big hat. You need the big
and it's
hat.
very sort of like frilly. It has like like frilly cuffs, and it's very proper and stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
This part I think maybe was my favorite part, where Lady Descaras is like, all right, like don't move, like I told you not to move. She's just
her
kind of like,
faces are very funny. I like how out of her element she is this whole time.
Yeah, it's very funny to be introduced to a character and be like, this is the most powerful witch, and then she's like immediately thrown for a loop and scared and doesn't know what's going on. I think that that kind of breaking is fun. It's like he's like, don't even think about speaking any chance, and he's like, oh, what did the guy say? He's like, Lazud, and he just kind of like glows in this goofy way. And then he says that chant, and it like cuts again, like uses this massive power, like cuts a giant swath ahead. And her face is really funny. Actually, all the faces at this bottom panel are very good.
I like Monet Gold's little gasp.
Yeah, her little kind of like, what would you call this?
Oh my,
yeah. And it explained to us here, like, as a side note, in this world, only women have the aptitude for magic. Thus, only women can acquire and use magics. That's why they are called witches. It's widely believed that men can't use magic. This is maybe...
I wish a character said that instead of a narrator.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is maybe why I'm like more focused on it, is that the chapter ends with just like not much art and like a giant monologue of like, men can't use magic, but let's say there was a magic with a special power. That magic probably had a trial that only a man could pass. That let's say a man with a mind and body well trained enough to handle the magic happened to pass the trial. Even that extremely rare case, that man's chance of acquiring the magic would be a mere 0.001%. Also, Japan always does this, and I'll never get this weird. They have some kind of weird attachment to like in the West, you would be like, oh, like nigh impossible, or like almost impossible. But Japan is always like 0.000% or like 1% or like a low percent. Like that's like how they say things like this, which is it's strange to me, and I wish people would translate that a little differently. But oh well.
I kind of like it because they did it once in Gurren Lagann when they're like, you have a 0.1% chance of living, and then they win, and I'm like, okay, that's hype. But I wish like a character said this. This would actually be kind of a cool moment. But the narrator saying it feels.
Well, and it was like
I don't know. It feels different.
It would be so easy for like Descaros or one of these or Monagold or someone to like. Monagold could even just be talking to herself to be like, men aren't supposed to to use magic. Like only women can use magic. Well, she has like assistants
there near the mirrors, right? She could just be explaining it to one of them. But,
or she's training them, or even like Descaros could be explaining it to Ichi or something. Like, I just like there's so many moments where it's like someone could have said something, or we could have seen it in a different way. Like, I also think that like explaining the magic here is very just sort of like the story stops and we spend 2 or 3 pages just explaining how magic works with characters we don't know, with magics that aren't important. Like, it just
that's why the pacing felt a little weird because it was like taking me from exposition to next scene, time skip a little bit.
And it does that like 2 or 3 times. It definitely has a little bit of a weird flow, but I still thought it was a pretty. I'm still interested to keep reading, which I think is really the intention of a chapter 1. Right? This didn't turn me off so much that I'm like, I don't want to read this anymore. At the very least, I think like it's an interesting situation. The art I think is good. The designs are great. I thought that the fun moments, the goofy faces and stuff, I thought that brings a little bit of a different feeling to it than a lot of the other magical type things that we've seen. I mean, I'm thinking of stuff like Ginka and Luna, which was had some fun in it, but it was even more serious than this, I would say. So,
Ginka and Luna was more serious than this. I'm not sure if that's true, but
it had. Well, I guess it had less sort of gag visual panels. I guess I would say maybe not serious in total tone, but it didn't have like funny facial expressions all over the place. But
I do like how lighthearted it is. I hope it stays that way. Despite me poo-pooing on the chapter, because I didn't think it was that good of a chapter, but I'm also interested. I like the characters, I like the gags, and the talent behind it. They have a track record of just putting out good shit consistently. So I'm very interested in this going forward as well.
Yeah, me too.
Despite it all, and I think it kind of like towards the end when the action was happening, it was a lot more fun.
Yeah, I agree. And when it wasn't explaining things, it worked a lot better, I thought. So.
And what else is there left to explain, right? Like now we're in the mix of it. I think that's what they were going for with the chapter 1, is to get all the world building mechanics out of the way.
Yeah, I think they'll have to go and explain the witch school, and then we'll be introduced to the side characters and stuff if there's other classmates or whatever. Because I think that's where this is going. That's where it seems to be going to me. So, but yeah, I mean,
wonder if this has another, like, you know how there are usually like 1 to 2 pilot chapters of like longer length, then we go into the 20 pages each. I wonder if the second chapter is like another 40 pages or something.
Probably. I think most Jump series get that. They usually get a lead that's 65-ish pages, which I think this one was like 67 or something. And the second chapter a lot of times is 45 or 60 again. Because usually volume 1 of these things will only be 4 chapters, unless it doesn't get a longer second page, and then it's 6. But I think we'll see another long chapter here. I think because this is first of a bunch, and I think that the names are really well known, the promotional stuff and the buzz I've seen from Western manga readers especially has been really positive on this. So
okay, good.
I guess it has been not as sort of like out the gate, oh my gosh, this is the best chapter I've ever read, but it's a lot of people going like, I've read their other stuff and this was pretty good. So I think people are interested in this and they'll keep reading.
You build goodwill, right? And that's like if Murata dropped something and it had a weak chapter 1, I'd definitely read chapter 2, right?
It'd be impossible, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, like if a well-known author, starts something and it doesn't, isn't excellent right from the get-go, I think you can still trust them enough to make it good. So,
agreed.
Cool. Anything else on Ichi the Witch Chapter 1, Gautam?
No, I'm looking forward to Chapter 2 because I feel like this wasn't a good representation of what I think the series will end up being. Yeah. Just like how I felt about Iruma. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Yep, me too. All right. As we mentioned at the top of the episode, and we'll talk more throughout this chapter because this chapter is very concerning to me. This is chapter 152 of Go-Go Loser Ranger, or Ranger Reject, which is the better title for it. We are in the middle of a sort of big battle between Foot Soldier D and the Neo Rangers and a newly transformed, what was she, a Blue Ranger whose name I forgot?
Yeah, it's I forgot her name too, but it's a second in command for the Blue Rangers who is obsessed with the old Blue.
Yeah, who died early on. So
yeah, yeah. You're mentioning it's concerning because it feels like it's ending, right?
I won't even necessarily say it feels like it's ending. It feels like in this chapter they did like 20 chapters worth of lore dumps, and so it feels like it has a time limit is what I think this chapter feels like. I like all the stuff that it's revealing. I think they are cool, interesting things. They lines up with what we know historically about the mysteries and the cool questions with the series. It's just in this one chapter they revealed like 4 or 5 huge things and move past them very quickly, which to me seems like maybe we've got like 1 volume left or 2.
Like they gave the author a deadline, right?
Like he knows now, okay, I have to get through, or, maybe it's like 20 chapters, but he knows like, oh, I have to start writing things faster now because because I only have X amount of time.
So real quick, just for context for anyone who's not up to date on sales metrics, Go-Go Loser Ranger is the lowest selling manga on the magazine. And the anime didn't really help it that much.
Yeah, no real anime boost to be spoken of, especially not with the current volumes. So
can I just say it's goddamn criminal? It's so good. It is so good.
Go-Go Loser Ranger is one of the most interesting and well-written manga out right now. Like there's just not manga that are about this. They're not this type of story, this type of like double agent infiltrating web of mysteries to unravel. Like there's just not like, and especially in sort of the 2 big shonen magazines, like there's not a single other thing that's like full of all these mysteries to unravel and trying to figure out, who's the real bad guy or who's the real good guy or how did things happen. And the historical things are interesting. It's one of these web of mysteries series. And it all is making really sense. It's great. The main character is super fun. Really, really, really wish that more people would read this. I mean, I think it's just so enjoyable, and it's unfortunate because I think it starts a little slow, which I think is why a lot of people maybe didn't get into it. And the first kind of major arc it has, which is like kind of a big training arc for some ranger
is clumsy.
Is super clumsy. But once that's over, it's fucking fire from there out. And it sucks because that's like
banger after banger. It's just sad that like one arc of like, I don't know, 20 chapters, and then it follows it up with 100 bangers in a row, right? Like it's like that good. And here's a quick call to action for me personally. Take $10. Don't even fucking support us. Go buy a volume of Go-Go Loser Ranger just show this manga some love, even if it is ending. I want it to do well. It's just so good.
If it turns, I really desperately hope that we're wrong about this sort of like only being around for a couple more chapters, because I hope that this is more of just the author saying it's time to reveal all these things and get stuff moving and get there.
And for what it's worth, all the reveals felt great this chapter.
They're good. They're the correct, like they fit in with what we know. They're interesting. They are what I expected a lot of times and unexpected fun things other times. And it makes sense.
Anyway, last desperate plea, go read it. Let's get into the chapter.
Yep. Yeah, go buy volume 1. Go buy all the Japanese volumes. It's probably cheaper to buy them that way. So chapter 152. So we've got them all kind of fighting this pseudo executive, I would say, is kind of what we think it is at this point. And
effectively just overuse of their tools,
of the dragon
their
divine
tools,
divine tools, yeah.
Ends up transforming them into an exec. As Yellow Ranger reveals a little later, I'll just get into it now, is that they need special surgery in order to use these properly. Otherwise, this happens.
Yeah. It turns them into, I mean, yeah, we should just, it's hard to just not just reveal things and talk about the whole chapter. It's not actually an executive here. She is confirmed pretty much to be transformed into what other people just call an invader, which is the same thing that Foot Soldier D is, but she looks different. The power's a little bit different, but yeah, because he gets attacked here, and he survives, which means that the power she's using is not actually a divine tool, because a divine tool would wipe out an invader in this way. So
right,
he's like, that means it wasn't a divine tool. It's like I couldn't even see it. And she's sort of like, I see. And then we have this is Sakurama, right? I think because he's missing the arm. Yeah, Sakurama, who's Neo Ranger 2, I think, right? Or 3? I don't know.
Yeah, he's number 2.
I think he's 2, right? So we then have a real, quote unquote, fake executive here, which is Neo Ranger 3 or 1. I don't remember.
The numbers don't matter. We'll just call them
the girl Neo Ranger who in the 3-way battle took the vial to inject herself and transform herself into like 80% of an executive.
Yeah, and this is the combo form where the guy with the pompadour and the girl are combined to make the executive.
Oh, did they combine? I missed that because I thought that he was still on the rooftop. But no, I guess last chapter, last chapter he was thinking about it. So this is like the full executive that they sort of both took half a thing to transform into and them together. So.
Yep. And they're fighting the newly awakened monster ex-Blue Ranger.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a newly transformed invader versus a fairly newly transformed executive, which is...
This must sound convoluted as fuck to anyone who's not.
Yeah, I know. If you haven't read this, you're looking at this and you're like, what? They said this is good? This is weird.
This sounds like algebra.
This is, this is how like deep and complex the web of lies in this series has been, because it
would make sense.
It makes sense if you've read it for sure. Yeah. I like that Yellow shows up here. We've kind of known that he's the guy who knows stuff. So him showing up here and dropping more and more reveals is obviously sort of like, I expected this to happen. I expected Yellow to be the one who like told us as the reader what was going on at some point.
And his divine tool is kind of perfect. You kind of get a glimpse at it, which is just a war bow.
Yeah.
It makes sense. He's like the puppet master doing everything from a distance, so his weapon kind of fits that.
Yeah. We also get the reveal here. He says, "I suppose you can't tame an ongoing story. It always grows beyond what's initially planned." And Sakurama down here says, "Plan is like, so you're saying you're to blame for this mess."
So this sounds like kind of a meta reference to this story, doesn't it? In a way, if it was ending, because it feels like it is.
Yeah, I also noticed this. Hold on, I got sirens going past. I don't even know if I picked him up, but yeah, and authors are bad at this. They express themselves through writing. So if they're feeling frustrated that they have to end a story early or they're being controlled or something, I think that it peeks through in the writing a lot. We see a lot of last chapters be very sort of like, I'm so disappointed that I didn't reach my goal, or something like that. So,
since the plot hook is like a story and a narrative within a narrative, it works. I like this little one-off joke, meta joke about Ranger Reject itself.
Yeah, but I do think that the line here of like, you can't tame an ongoing story, it always grows beyond what's initially planned. This to me feels like the author saying like, I had a lot more planned. It's grown beyond what the magazine is willing to sustain me with. That's kind of how I'm reading it. Unfortunately, this feels
or I should have reined it in a bit more and kept it
or earlier, right? Like I do think that. Yeah, I do think that like this whole chase arc has felt very weird to me.
I've loved it.
No, I mean
I liked it.
I have enjoyed it, but it felt it has a weird feeling where it was a lot of just like, I don't know. It was very surprising, the start of it, where it was just like, oh, Foot Soldier D got found out. Now he's getting chased. It felt very kind of like, boom, okay, we're going. And then it kind of has been led continually into like, okay, now we're fighting this Blue Ranger who's got this power. I don't know. it feels strange to me, and I think if it does end up that it gets canceled pretty soon after this, or if it ends pretty soon after this, I think that'll be why it felt weird. Is that probably things were going quickly. I mean, I guess like comparing it to the lead up to something like the three-way battle, like the three-way battle really ramped up slowly, introduced all the people there, and kind of took its time to get everyone there and set things up and match people up and have cool high moments and cool resting moments. And this one has felt like it was just sort of like, let's get all the characters in the same place. You know, like all the Neo Rangers are here, all the Rangers are here, all the Green Battalion is here. Like now Yellow is here. It's like everyone just here, and it's like, well, they're just chasing like one foot soldier. Why is everyone here? It just feels very like forced, I guess, maybe. It
was Yellow Ranger's plan to kind of puppeteer a situation where they're all kind of fighting each other. So
for sure,
that's the explanation. But as he says in this chapter, it didn't go how he planned. I'm curious as to see what parts were planned. You know, as Sakurama say, planned. It's like which parts were part of the plan and which went off the rails due to these relationships with these people, I guess. You know?
Well, and it's also interesting to think about the I don't remember what it's called exactly, the like phantom script or whatever they call it. Which was talked about kind of in the big not flashback, but the part with the fake red
amnesia arc.
Yeah, the red amnesia arc talked about that a lot. And we hadn't heard a lot about that before, and we still don't know much about the original Rangers TV show, although we do get a little more. But here we have Yellow explaining to us, right, like, those who became Dragon Keepers need to have an adaptability surgery, you know. It's absolutely necessary to make one able to use multiple divine tools. It's like, otherwise everyone would become an executive. So this is like a pretty big reveal, right? Because we've seen Rangers using divine tools off and on. You assume like, oh yeah, they pick the powerful people, they give them the tools. We've seen Blue replaced with a new guy. We've seen Red replaced with a clone or two. And we didn't really know that it's like, these divine tools, if anyone tries to use them, they will be overcome and turned into like an evil, you know, executive type. So,
yeah, I wonder what that says about like Hisui's jaws, right? Like her mouth tool.
Well, and I don't know. So those are not full-fledged divine tools, right? Those are like smaller offshoots. So I don't know if it applies to the smaller ones or just the like full-fledged divine tools, which there's only 5 of, right, that we know of. It's only 1 for each ranger. So
yeah, exactly.
It's only like the hammer, the bow, the I don't remember what they all technically are, but Green has the hammer. We saw Yellow's bow. Those are like the divine tools, and everyone else is like a divine tool, but lowercase, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right.
He also calls the sort of clone Red a failed product. I don't know if that necessarily. Yeah,
it means he's not sticking to the script. That's why he tried to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just like the failed clone that he tried to murder, but somehow lived.
Yeah, we also get Sakurama here telling us, like, you know, I'm working with Old Red, and he says they told me about the origin of the Rangers. So already here we've gotten these reveals about Dragon Tools making executives, the reveals that Yellow had this all planned, which we kind of already knew. And now we're getting, okay, origin of the Rangers. Sakurama knows the origin of the Rangers. Red Copy knows the origin of the Rangers, which we don't as readers, right? We know some details, but definitely not everything.
Right.
And even more reveals are coming. Like, that's halfway through the chapter. He says how the Dragon Keepers operating in our world and all the Rangers around them are just part of a story created by a single team, Guji Productions. And your thinking was, for justice to flourish eternally, evil must exist to oppose it. That's why you created the invaders. This is a confirmation that we have been very, very suspicious of. I'd say it's almost confirmed from hints in the past, but essentially that the Dragon Keepers, or apparently what we now know is the team behind the Dragon Keepers, the Dragon Rangers, Gucci Productions, also created the invaders because they needed bad guys for their good guys to fight, or else they were just good guys with no story, right? So
yeah, exactly. At this point, it's like a kind of like, if you've seen The Boys, it's like a situation like that where they manufacture villains in order to keep the heroes like relevant in the public's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, create a problem and sell the solution to it is a marketing thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Tell people that they're too fat and sell them a weight loss drug or whatever, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So this this is this the biggest reveal in the chapter? Maybe. This is the biggest confirmation, but I think this is something that you and I think a lot of readers had suspected for a long time. That's like, yeah, the invaders, I think, are clearly...
It's plainly obvious. It's just said out loud this time.
Yeah, well, and also the sort of like cooperation of the invaders in the like big Sunday battle and stuff early on in the story. That's very much sort of like, why are they just cooperating to do this? Like, why did they just attack on Monday or Saturday?
But there's a level on top of this where if this was all manufactured, the executives don't listen to the orders, right? Clearly.
Yes. I was going to bring that up next. So good.
So yeah, I'm curious to see how that puzzle piece fits in, because that's like off script.
Right. Well, and I think that's the reason the Dragon Keepers are so adamant about hunting down and eliminating the executives, because I think the executives are essentially not necessarily failed experiments, but they've created the bad guy actor with a power on an equal or similar level to a Dragon Keeper. So if there's a real threat to the Dragon Keepers, it's not the foot soldiers, right? The foot soldiers are really no threat at all. But the executives are a threat. And if the executives choose to go off script or choose to do their own thing or choose to not play their part, that causes issues. And I think that's what we saw with whatever the one that came down and met the one that's the mom of what's her name, Usakubo, right?
Oh yeah. That's
Usakubo's mom, I think, was one of those executives who was like, I don't want to play this game anymore. Yeah. I think clearly what we know now is that like she was probably turned into an executive against her will and was like sad about it, maybe, or maybe she agreed to it and then regretted it. She wanted to go down and feel, like human compassion again. Met Usakubo's dad. They had her, and again, that's I think maybe the very next thing that we see. Yeah, okay, it is, because I wanted to talk about this. Is Yellow is like about to take out Invader D here, and Usakubo comes in with her power, and we get this interesting line that's just like, oh, dear me, that power is ... which everything that we know up to this point tells us, okay, invaders, if you are a normal person and you use a divine tool and you are not surgically enhanced or changed for it, you turn into an executive. Usakubo is half executive, half human, right? Her mom was an executive, her dad was a regular human. So I think what we're seeing here essentially is she has the power to use a divine tool without surgical enhancement because she's biologically half invader, right? Like that just kind of makes sense to me.
I guess like, I wonder how the dragon's lineage fits into all of this, but we'll learn that, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing. I think we kind of already know how it fits into it, but we don't know how it started. I think we know that there is a bloodline or a group of people or a group of girls or whatever it is that they use those girls either have powers or when they're killed, or they can be converted into the power of a divine tool.
I believe it was their bones that they used to craft the tools or something.
Their bones or their bodies or something. Yeah. Like it requires the person to die essentially. And they were cloning, oh God, what's her name?
The yandere yellow.
Yeah. One of the first three characters we meet in the story that kind of agrees to help Dee to take down the Rangers, is that girl. She's the last, I think we are told, the last of the sort of dragon lineage. So she's, from what I have understood and sort of gleaned from what we've been told, if they want to make another full-fledged divine tool, she's the only one that they can kill to do it. They have cloned her to make these smaller divine tools, I believe is what we're shown during the three-way battle. They have clones of her down there, but I think Yellow explains that it's like they aren't like full-fledged, we don't get full-fledged tools from them. So,
but it's kind of interesting to think about that her whole bloodline was killed just so this like little play could happen. Because every invader was created from her.
I mean, every invader and every ranger and every power. So yeah, there's definitely something historical. The sort of historical moment is what we're missing in their story. Is that we don't really know where they came from or how the original people learned about him or how the Guji Productions, when the first Ranger TV show was airing, took it seriously or how that all happened. But we do sort of know that they exist. They're where the stuff comes from. I also wonder if that means that, so if using a divine tool who is made from a person, if there's still some will of that person remaining, maybe, and that's why executives kind of rebel and fight back, is that they maybe are educated, elucidated by what's going wrong when they sort of ascend. I don't know.
I have a feeling that the executives just had power and they know that they're on the oppressed side of things. A quick break from theory crafting here. I love this little panda guy. This little shitty.
Yeah, he just fucking hates D.
Yeah. Mad respect. That guy has grown on me more than any character in the series. He's just a piece of shit.
He reminds me of who's the guy in Armored Core
Iguazu.
6? Iguazu.
He reminds me just like of G5 Iguazu.
G5 Iguazu. The only reason that character exists is to hate you as a main character and fuck with you along the way.
You know, if someone is a big enough hater, I come back around to respecting them a little bit. And Hisui shows up and is like, hey, that's my target. Fuck off. Kind of big dogs him.
Yeah. Which is also interesting because, I don't know how Green plays into all of this. The script is still...
Green is just on side, gather information, find the truth, is how I think they play.
I think so, yeah. Just
they're on Team D, yeah.
So we get...
I love this little part here real quick, is how D's like internal monologue of facing the truth is just what's his name? Usakubo's dad, the Mega Death Invader. Yeah,
Super Mega Death Invader, whatever. Well, no, this is a flashback, actually. This is him thinking, because he was stuck in there with that guy for like 10 months or whatever, right? This is one of those things.
Because this guy chimes in terms of modern events. It's like, this might be a reality you don't want to face, D. Or like, this guy's just in his brain now.
I think those are all flashbacks because they talk 100%. For 10 months. These are like things that he has saying, the things that he said to D during their time together that D is like remembering. Like
he has said things about current events that have been happening.
There was one time where he did that. Yeah, this is, I'm pretty sure, a thing where it's flashback. So, I think so because it's like, this is something that there was a chapter where they were stuck together talking that ended without a completed idea, where I think that it was about to say, like,
he said something in these kinds of panels. He's chimed in on too many like modern events throughout the chase, like situational events that I think he's just like a little voice in his head now, which I love. I love that little. I like that character, so it's good to see him back in some capacity. But it could be
he was great. He was great. I want to say, because there was a panel in here that I thought showed that it was more of a direct thing, but
yeah. Anyway, we could keep going.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, so we get another big reveal here. This is why this chapter feels jam-packed, is that we are not done with big reveals. That all of these things kind of put together, that Gucci Productions is controlling all of this, and how you get executives made basically means that invaders were created by Gucci Productions. Created by human hands, right? So instead of being this sort of rebellious, I'm not a human, I can't ever be one, I don't understand them, I need to fight back against them. D was created by humans and is a tool for them to use, and is, fighting against that, which is similar, but not exactly the same. But D kind of like refuses to believe it.
Yeah, because it's an existential crisis. It's like reality shattering for him. Cool moment.
Yeah, he also sort of fights against the idea that if he was created by a human, that means that his rebellious nature was implanted by someone, and maybe he's not making the choice. We get into kind of choice of free will, philosophical stuff there. But D kind of rejects that, and I do think the way that this is playing out is essentially going to be that the script that they're following plays very, very closely to what Yellow or Gucci Productions or whoever intends. Like, I think the big three-way battle, I think that kind of played out exactly the way that was intended. But I do think that D's presence and all that has changed the way things end up, and he's a wrench in the spokes for sure.
He built relationships that Yellow didn't calculate, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that D is freaking out right now. I think it's like totally in character, because if you think about his like competencies as a character, he's very weak. He is not that intelligent, but he is incredibly wily and independent. So the fact that he thinks someone implanted his motives and everything about him is like world shattering in regards to that's his like core competencies, his independence, right?
Yeah, well, and so we also learned a couple of chapters ago that the foot soldiers all have, there's like a core in the ship that if the core is destroyed, all the foot soldiers die. So
let's circle back around to that because I want to pitch you a theory at the end of this.
Okay, cool. I think we just have maybe like one more page here. Green shows up with his little like spy lizard, which I think is cool. He's like, Chidori, he says like, I may be late, but I'm up to speed on how things unfolded. Remember the last time we saw Chidori, he was confronting the dragon, the original
dragon girl.
Yeah, the original dragon girl, the second command Yellow Ranger. So I think he's got more information here that he's going to give us soon, probably next chapter.
He clearly fought her because he's all scummed up.
Yeah, he's beaten up, but so I think that he probably just got information about her because he definitely did see them fight.
Yeah.
He says, you and Suzuki got involved in some terrible business. He's like, this whole turmoil is part of a story someone wrote too. So he definitely he sort of implies here what we were saying, that like this was all planned in some way or another by someone, which is, this is the Ranger is approaching the subject of free will. Like this is going to be a core part of how this ends, I think. Because that's, are your actions predetermined by in Ranger Reject, it's a script. In real philosophy, it's a god or a greater power. Do you truly have free will? Or if free will is given to you by a god, is that really free will? So those are like very deep philosophical questions that we have talked about for hundreds and thousands of years. But
and if we have to read like kind of where the author stands, is definitely free will exists because that is Dee's whole character.
Yeah, almost every non-religious philosopher comes down on the same, it's the same side, I will say. Unless you're a religious guy who says it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, God has a plan for us, whatever. Most of them come down on like, yes, there is free will. I can choose to do things that should not be expected, but there's also no, we don't want to get too much philosophy. There's no true way to know if your will is free until you are dead. So, and then you can't know it. So,
okay, so this final part, it's hard not to read this as meta as well. A lot of things Yellow say feel meta. Well, now it's time to put an end to this botched script. I'm not. It's a cool line. I'm not sure if it's referencing the series or not. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it does sound like. Again, if it was just one of these lines where it was like, oh, this kind of sounds like the story's coming to an end, and maybe there's not much time. If there was just one of those in this chapter, like if it was just, well, now let's put an end to this botched script, like cool ending line. But there's two of them in this chapter. Or maybe even three, and two things, make a connecting line. Three things make a pattern. This is why I'm worried, right? Is because this chapter to me sent at least two signal flares up that said, this is ending soon. We're at the end. Things, the story was messed up in somehow, I think is kind of implied by both of them. Which I think the author, I don't want to say the author feels bad for not being more successful or getting more time, but maybe the author was just like, I need to wrap this up. I'm done. Maybe he's losing interest. Maybe he's like, I just need to finish this in 2 volumes and get out of there. We're close enough. Let's just do it. Maybe this isn't axed at all, right? Maybe he's just like, I need to get out. I will say, I've read Quintessential Quintuplets, right? Which is Negi Haruba's last series. And that whole series had incredible pacing. The mysteries in there were great. The very end of Quintessential Quintuplets comes really fast and is not very good. So I am a little concerned about the end of Ranger Reject here. Just because I think there's a lot that I feel like there's a lot of plot points we need to know and be revealed and be told about. And I don't want them all in like 3 chapters. I want them to take their time to be revealed. Like, again, I thought this was a cool chapter, but there's too many reveals in this chapter. There's too much going on in this chapter. There's way too many things going on in this chapter.
There's a lot going on, but it felt satisfying.
All the decisions were right. Yeah, I agree. The things that they did were satisfying. All of them needed more time to breathe, right? Like we get back to back, like, 2 pages apart, we get, story grows beyond what's initially planned.
I don't mind it as long as it's not told. As this chapter is only rushed if we're looking at it within the context of the series ending soon.
Yeah.
Because if it's not ending soon, then I think it's a good chapter and we'll get.
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree. If this is not actually, if this still has another 30 or 40, you know, maybe a year or something left, then this is just sort of like, oh, that was the pivotal moment where everything went to shit and we got all the reveals and then things went on and then they ended.
Yeah.
What I'm worried about is, if this ends in 8 chapters, like then this is, it's incredibly rushed and difficult. So
I think with the context, if like we look at this with the perspective of not reading into this on a meta level, then I think this can be a good chapter where we get more on it later, you know? It's just hard not to a little bit. So I don't know. We will see. Dude, let me tell you my crackpot theory.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear it.
So the invaders are all attached to this core. They respawn effectively when they die, unless killed by a divine tool. Then they die for good. But
yeah,
they respawn at the flying fortress at a core. I think all of the invaders were initially one being that got split up for TV show purposes, but also if they were like one entity, they're immortal. It's like I think by the end of it, D has not had a power spike really. He's been weak this whole manga, and that's what makes it good. I think the perfect time to give him a power spike is what Negi hinted at earlier, where D's like, I'll come back for all of you because you're me, kind of a thing. I think they all combine into one actual Mega Death Invader.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it was implied, I think when he said that, it was like, because he wanted to have his own thoughts. He didn't want to be combined with the others. I think that there was something like said about that. I do think it's possible.
I think he's autonomous. Like, I think D is probably the ego and like id and all of like the individuality of the invaders anyway. So
well, okay, and here's my attached crackpot theory. There are a bunch of executives we know about. My theory is essentially that they needed a way to make these respawning little bad guys, and they did that by sort of manipulating a creation of an executive, quote unquote, that would just be, the executive is just a core that has, 10 parts or whatever, right? 10 parts that are the foot soldiers. They
split one dude. Yeah.
Yeah, they split one dude a lot of. And here's my other crackpot theory. The one dude that they split is probably one of the original Rangers who knows something. I want to say maybe the original Red would maybe be my guess, just because he's been the most important historically. But there's a little bit less proof for that. I do think it's possible that the foot soldiers are a quote unquote executive in themselves, just split up into smaller pieces. And that's kind of why they can respawn, right? It's because you aren't destroying the executive, you're cutting off its arm and it can regrow it every time, right? So,
and I think it also is telling that despite all invaders being created by humans, that the Usakubo's dad and Usakubo see D as their one true savior, Jesus Christ. They like, if they were all created by humans, why is D so special despite being a foot soldier, right? I think they probably know a little bit more than Usakubo makes sense. She's in love with D.
Yeah.
He saved her. But Usakubo's dad, who's a big fan of the original series that we still don't know much about, loves D too. So I'm just curious.
And
right?
I think, and I'll tie that into my theory. What if they love him so much because they know that he was the like original Red? Like Red is everyone's favorite Ranger, right? Like the leader, the main Ranger is, if you ask 40 kids, you ask 100 kids who their favorite Power Ranger is of the original 5, like Red Ranger is probably at the top, right? So maybe
I don't know anything about Power Rangers.
Oh, okay. I grew up on the original for years, but he's like the main leader Ranger until others come in. Like if there's 5 Rangers, Red is almost always the leader. So yeah. So I don't know. It kind of makes sense that it's like, oh, if he was like your favorite Ranger in the show, and then they turned him into an evil being that was split into 20 personalities or whatever, and then you found a little shard of that personality, you would kind of like worship that in a way, like enjoy it or like it. To be honest,
it would track a little bit. It would track. Red is also an idiot. Red is also impulsive and hot-headed. He's more psychopathic than D, though. Yeah. D has like a lot of empathy and heart, despite acting like he doesn't. So, and
we also know that every Red we've seen is a clone. So
yeah, exactly. So it would align. I think we're onto something, or we're onto nothing, and I guess we'll see which one it is.
Well, and I've got to think back because there was a flashback a while ago with the original Rangers, and Red was like, oh, I'm going to go check or investigate something. And then the next time we see him, he's like crazy like the clones are. He like shows up and is a bad dude. So I'm wondering if that's kind of the moment where they like capture original Red, clone him, you know, use him to make the foot soldiers, or maybe the foot soldiers like an initial test on making executives and it didn't quite work out. So they're like a little different. I don't know. Something like that. There's still mysteries in this thing, even though they revealed seven of them to us in this chapter. So
yeah, we're just theory crafting here, fellas. A theory craft with us.
Cool. So yeah, go spend money on Ranger. Don't let it die. I'm really afraid that this is going to end in like 8 chapters.
Put it out of your mind.
The next chapter is going to do a lot to either quell my fears. Like if it goes back to sort of like its normal pacing and it slows down and, you know, goes its normal speed, I'll be like, okay, we're fine. It just needed to do a big reveal chapter. You know, maybe this is the last chapter of a volume or something. You wanted it to be big. But if it continues with like, we are going at breakneck speed, here are more reveals, then I'm going to be very worried. Because
I guess we'll see. I'm not sure either.
Because again, a single instance of something does not make a pattern. 2 is you know, you can draw a line between them. 3 in a row definitely is a pattern. So we'll see what the next chapter or 2 says.
Anyway, we've been on Ranger for like 30 minutes now. Let's get it.
We knew this was going to be a long episode, so cool. Yeah, is there anything else on Ranger you want to talk about before we move on?
Nah, not really.
Cool. Let's go over Sakamoto Days real quick because I thought this was a really good chapter. So they're going through their training arc right now. This is Shin and Heisuke. They have been sent to the JAA prison, which I think is a great idea. Prison Break movies are cool. I don't know if you've ever seen The Rock. Like that's a great movie. Or what's the early 90s Prison Break? Shawshank Redemption.
It's called Prison, and there's a show called Prison Break.
There's a show called Prison Break people love, but yeah, I think this is a great idea. Shin is looking to he's told that there is a ESP trainer. She's like I spoiled it, because it's what we learned at the end of the chapter, but I thought that was a cool reveal because for all the good things that Sakamoto Days has, there's not a whole lot of female characters that do much in it. So I think it's good that they're introducing another one, and hopefully she plays a big part.
Actually, a good point. Really only the metal bending.
Yeah, Chainsaw Girl, and then like 1 or 2 of the bad guys have been girls, but it's like very, very heavily weighted towards men fighting each other. So, that
makes sense.
You know, it is what it is, but yeah, we get a little flashback though. We're told like the jail has 3 underground levels. They need to get to the deepest one. I think this is cool that Shin kind of gets his power upgrade where the one of the guards kind of looks away. He's like, check the time, and he like freezes them with his mind powers and then fights these guys off. It's definitely cool to see how far Shin has come from early on, where all he could do was like minorly read minds and stuff.
Just perceive Sakamoto killing him. Over minor inconveniences.
Yep, and then this is in my opinion, the real fun part of the chapter, which is that we get Mr. Hardboiled back, who is, in my opinion, like one of the best side character bad guy fights Sakamoto's ever had.
I actually don't remember him. Aside from this chapter, where was he?
So the fight that Sakamoto has with him is when they go into a train and Sakamoto uses the handbar to fight him off.
I love that. Yeah, I remember that.
And it ends with them in a. I searched "that's not hard boiled" and it gave me a lot of pictures of eggs. It ends with this panel, which is kind of an iconic one.
That's
like because the whole thing is like he's like, oh, you're not Sakamoto, you're not hard boiled, you're not cool enough, and Sakamoto like annihilates him obviously, and then it ends with like you're the epitome of hard boiled.
Yeah. So that's sick.
And this is all the way back like 150 chapters ago. So it's been a while since we've seen him, but I do think that he is a fan. He was one of my favorite sort of side characters. Like this guy, the movie director guy, I think are maybe my 2 favorites, 2 fights we've had. So, and we get a really cool fight between him and Shin. Kind of more of a beatdown, but look, anybody punching through a wall is cool to me. Like, I don't know. That's just, there's a level of unrealism and strength and coolness to it that I like. That's like,
it's
you can't do that in real life.
Dude.
It is. It's hard boiled. I think his design is also so simple and cool. He's just like casual, like floral print. He's got the beard. He's got the glasses. I think he looks cool.
Yeah.
Again, action paneling always on point here. He's basically attacking Shin because he's like, oh, you said you were with Sakamoto. It's like, you're not as cool as he. You're not as hard boiled as Sakamoto is. So like, show me you are.
You know, it's kind of funny, like looking at this panel, because he could really just leave the prison if he wanted to.
Yeah, he's well. I think he's
punching a dude through bars, like prison bars. Yeah, he's just like absurdly strong.
Yeah, very strong. So the end of the chapter here, we kind of get shown the bottom of the prison where we're told this ESP trainer person is, and it's revealed here, right? Like I assumed, like everybody else, like, oh, it'll be some old man or some, ESP guy. Like I was fully assuming this to be a dude, and so I think it's cool that it's like, oh, it's a cute little girl. Like, good. This is not a character we've seen before in Sakamoto days. So,
do you think the subversion here, because like Shin does look like the pretty boy archetype. So seemingly that's the prince in shining armor she's talking about.
Yeah,
she's
you would
like,
assume.
My prince in shining armor is on its way. My predictions never fail. We would assume that. Do you think it's maybe what is the sniper guy's name?
Heisuke.
Heisuke. Yeah. I'm wondering if the subversion is that it's maybe Heisuke instead, because he hasn't done anything in the prison yet, right? So
it could be. I do think that the subversion here is that it's not Shin coming to rescue her. I actually think it's this guy. Like I actually think
hard boiled guy. Yeah, that would be cool too.
I think that he's going to be more of a like. He's going to be more of like, oh, you really are on Sakamoto's side and as cool and hard boiled as him. Let me help you out. And I think
breaking out of prison is badass. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there could, just because there's more of like, Japan has this idea of gap moe, right? Where it's like the idea that what you would expect in the way someone looks, their visual thing and their personality kind of differ. And I think there's like sort of an idea of that here of like, oh, you would assume, the cute little ESP girl is going to have a crush on the good looking pretty boy ESP boy. But it's like, there's some gap moe if she's into like the strong dude with the beard who's 40 or whatever.
I could see it. I could see that too.
I definitely do think that's not Shin. Although if it is Shin, then maybe they still won't work. But so.
She kind of sucks though, like because they made her homemade food and she just throws it back at the guard. She's going to be a total brat, I could tell.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested to see if she has combat capabilities or if she's literally just like the fortune teller, or like how she's going to improve Shin's combat or what. So
she's out here smoking cigs though. So
yeah, I mean, I say she looks like a little girl. She's at least, I think she's like 20s or something probably.
Yeah. So, getting homemade food and cigs. I think she has she's like doing work out of the prison. And she has a video game setup. She has like a nice little chamber.
I mean, definitely, I think that if you just if you're guarding her and she has full real future prediction capabilities, you could just ask her and be like, hey, like, who wins the soccer game on Saturday? And if she told you the answer and you bet on it, like, okay, you're going to give her whatever the hell she wants and keep her happy.
Yeah. So, future sight.
Yeah. Well, and they're told that the JA was using her for a long time to like predict things until something changed about her, right? Which I think means that she saw the JA was going bad and she's a good person is like most likely thing here.
I could see that. Yeah.
I think she's a good guy. I don't think this is like a bad guy we end up having to fight. So
yeah, I think she's just like another shithead character we add to the crew of good guys.
Yep, I hope so. Because we're severely lacking girls on our team. Because Lou showed up for like a chapter, like maybe 5 or 6 chapters ago.
Wonder, it's kind of funny. I wonder if the audience didn't resonate with her. Or something.
I don't know, because I like her early fight was one of the first ones where I was like, okay, I get this series. I get why it's cool now and why it's like interesting and cool kind of powers or angles on fights. So I don't know. It's weird that she just went away, but
she's just like a full-time worker now at Sakamoto's shop.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay.
We'll see. Anything else?
Yeah, looking forward to more.
Anything else in Sakamoto days?
Fun as always.
Cool, yeah. Just a couple of pieces of news here. First thing up, turns out that Hunter x Hunter still sells a fucking lot, even with the worst manga cover I've ever seen. 5 days on the market, volume 38 of Hunter x Hunter sells over 500,000 copies at this point. I think we're now into 7 or 8 days.
Hey, you know what? When you're the GOAT, you just sell copies. That's just how
it turns out you can draw the worst manga cover of all time. It doesn't matter if it's Hunter x Hunter and people have been reading it. It'll sell more than 500,000 copies.
This is serious hater energy from someone who hasn't read.
That have you? It's the worst. Manga. It's the worst volume cover of all time. Gautam, have you seen it?
But did you see his note though? It's very funny.
His vote Gone isn't in this volume. It's we talked about
Why did you draw Gone? Why did you draw Gone if he's not in this volume?
This is the worst volume cover of all time, my dude. It's a white background with a dude punching. This is like a 12-year-old could draw this. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like Togashi, I believe, is an amazing writer. I know he has physical issues. That does not excuse the design and execution in general of this cover being the worst manga cover
I'll give you
I've
that.
ever seen.
By all means, it makes no sense. By all means, it doesn't make sense. The low quality of it doesn't bother me. The fact that Gon is not in the volume makes no sense to put him on the cover.
He looks at it and was like, well, he's the easiest character for me to draw in my destroyed state. It's like, well, I'll just draw Gon. And then write a note.
You should have just drawn that turkey, that one meme turkey image from Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah. But for comparison, to tell you how much this is, Spy Family is in second place here, like approaching 500,000, and then third place you jump all the way down to 80,000. So there are some pretty clear heavy hitters at the top here when big volumes like that release, and then everything else is down. So.
And this just speaks to the staying power, because when I went to Japan, Spy Family was like the biggest shit in the world. Like,
yeah, me too.
Everything was marketing Spy. So this is Spy's sales with the marketing boost. Hunter comes back and it just drops 500,000 right.
Well, because it's been a year since the last volume, right? Or like 9 months or something. So
it's just cool that it has staying power. Like it's built loyalty that spans, that the author can just write a chapter or two every year and still retain the audience. That's like insane audience.
It's false scarcity, not false scarcity, but the author is not is holding back chapters. They are just not drawing chapters.
But I don't even think it's a scarcity. Like, scarcity makes the heart grow fonder type of thing. I think it's just the writing is that good, because there's so much good media out there. People just forget about otherwise good shows that take too long to keep going. Hunter x Hunter just stays winning, and hey, I respect it. That's awesome.
Cool. Shonen Jump Plus app is celebrating its 10th anniversary. They're doing a bunch of teasers. The most recent one we got was Fire Punch. That was from 2016, I believe, or 2015 maybe. That rocketed, of course, Tatsuki Fujimoto, author of Chainsaw Man, now to the front. So I'm interested to see what other Shonen Jump kind of teasers we get. They've kind of done like basically the biggest series from that year, starting in 2014. I think Fire Punch was 2015, so maybe it's the second one, but I'm interested to see what other series we got. Obviously, I think 2019 will be Spy Family, right? I think is when Spy Family started. That's the biggest hit that Jump Plus has ever had. So the next new series in Weekly Shonen Jump is going to be Shinobi Undercover by Ippon Tagoshi and Satana Mitarashi. It is interesting to me. I want to just talk on this real quick. It's interesting to me that we're getting another duo. And I think that with this duo, it's probably going to be the most 2 or more author-artist pairs we've ever had in Weekly Shonen Jump. Because there's about to be a bunch of them, right? Akane is done by 2. Ichi is done by 2. This new series is done by 2. I have to look at the list and see what else.
I think it's just the way of things. It's a way more manageable workload when you don't have to story craft and do the art in story, like paneling and all that shit, right?
I mean, I've talked about this for years on the podcast during various hot takes or opinions or whatever. Is that I do think that manga has a lot of comic producing things more right than the West does, but I do think that the thing the West does better is that you have a writer who focuses on honing the craft of writing, and you have an artist who focuses on the art, the craft of honing their art, and those are 2 completely different skill sets most of the time. And so having 2 different people do them is, you're going to get generally, I think, a better product in both. I think there's very, very, very few, there's just so very few mangaka who are actually that good at both sides of it. I would point to someone like Hiromu Arakawa, right? Full Metal Alchemist. Her art is not that great. Like, that's the one kind of downfall, but her storytelling is amazing, right? She has honed her storytelling more than she has honed her art. So
I give it to Oda. He's been doing it.
I mean, Oda's an exception
years.
for sure. Yeah. But even
consistently, it's insane.
Yeah. Even someone like Urasawa's art is really good and definitely his own style, but he is not, he's using a lot of the sort of like converted backgrounds and stuff, so he's not drawing as much. He's also isn't like an action type guy. It's a lot of still panels and stuff. I think he's a really good artist, but he's a much better storyteller. So yeah, I think I do think you're right. I think this is the way things are going. Is that you will,
and it's good. It's sustainable. Well, it's more sustainable.
I think so.
Yeah.
I hope that this does not. I hope this doesn't mean that these authors are getting paid half of what they would if they did something solo. I'd hope the WSA doesn't work like that. I don't know. I would hope not, but
I think it's like a gamble, right? Because if you get a big hit, it's sustainable and you'll have way more money than you know what to do with anyway, right? So
yeah. Well, companies always have something to do with it, but cool.
Sure. Yeah. Look, Shinobi Undercover, we're going to ninjas. I wonder if there's like a fighting archetype type job that hasn't been covered, because we have like pirates, ninjas.
Pirates is the one that I'm always surprised that like nobody else did. Like One Piece is just such a huge thing that nobody else even tries pirates. Like
it's like, how do you even compete though, right?
I mean,
there's
there's definitely different angles of pirates you could try, but they just no one. I think that anyone who. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just like no one's even tried. Like even in the West, it's like Batman and Superman have been copied endless times, and those are the two things that are on the level of sales of One Piece and popularity as One Piece. But in Japan, One Piece exists, and no one else is trying to do pirates. No one is copying it. I guess there are copies. You could say things like Black Clover are kind of like it copying One Piece, but in a magical setting, stuff like that. But
I think the reason One Piece is successful is not because of the pirates.
That's true.
But it's also like, I don't think pirates are as inherently cool as like ninjas and stuff, right? Like I think that's probably why people don't want to do a pirate series, and they can't go too dark with it and be in Shonen Jump. So it's like either like One Piece fits that quota so perfectly that you're either going to be like a ripoff of One Piece, and I don't think you want to be in that market, brother. It's
not really. No.
Yeah.
Don't want to directly compete. Cool. Yeah. That's it for the news, I think, unless you've got anything else.
No, that's it.
All right, let's do one more thing. I have been reading Kaiju 8 because it is not it's not good. I read it because it comes out every 2 weeks or a month. It does not have very many chapters. It is very easy to read. It is very bad. It has been very bad for over a year.
Yeah, you took 5 minutes out of your day to catch up on all of Kaiju 8.
Well, no, I've been reading it weekly.
Go fast.
Yeah, I've been reading it week or bi-weekly, whenever it comes out. The last chapter might be one of the worst chapters I've ever read of anything. And
really? Goddamn. Well, why so bad?
Not for any like small things, just for like the general decision. So when was the last time you read Kaiju 8?
It was a while ago.
Okay.
It's the main guy, the
Kafka, yeah.
The number one dude was like fighting some monsters with special eyes.
Okay. So basically,
I like that character, though.
Yeah, what has been happening the past like year, maybe year and a half in Kaiju 8 is number 9, who is like the big bad of the series so far, who is this other monster who like takes other monster powers into him and blah blah blah. They have been fighting him for a year, and we have gotten like 2 chapters in a row of just like Kafka's internal messaging of like, I'm going to help my girlfriend, his childhood girlfriend. I'm going to do that. It would be like 2 chapters in a row, which, by the way, keep in mind, 2 chapters in a row is like probably 5 or 6 weeks apart for the series, just because of how slowly it comes out. And we finally in the past 2 or 3, I guess 2 chapters ago, maybe, we finally got Kafka and his girlfriend fighting Kaiju 9 together. Kafka does his, all out attack. They open up his core. She shoots it, or he kills it. Boom, it's dead. Awesome. In this most recent chapter of Kaiju 8, spoilers for, up to date on the manga here. And Kaiju 9 has been like just continually getting upgrades. He's like, oh, you cut my arm off, but it doesn't matter. I can regrow it. Or like, oh, you opened the way to my core. It doesn't matter. My core is extra hard. I have 2 cores. Literally, it has been that for like, no lie, a fucking year. Like, so fucking long. This series is garbage.
It's kind of funny because from the get-go, everyone hated 9 because he just ass pulls his way to victory every time.
Yes, he's been doing that for the past year in the direct battle where you were assuming that he's going to be taken down. But
I think it's inherently unsatisfying when you don't know the capabilities of a villain. So at any one of their like, haha, you activated my trap card moments, just feel like an ass pull, right?
But here's the big thing that the most recent chapter did. The most recent chapter revealed that it did a backstory on Kaiju 9. It shows him meeting this like incredibly powerful eldritch being, which it takes inside itself. So right when you think, oh, the core is destroyed and we've won, in this latest chapter, Kaiju 9 revealed, like splits itself open, reveals that it's this 10 times as powerful, eldritch monster. It like cuts Kafka's arm off, and then the end of the chapter ends with it like implying that it's going to cut the girl in half. Like, it's
okay.
So that is where we are, right? Is we have fought this guy for a year, like literally a year. I think we've been in combat with, like directly in combat with Kaiju 9. They finally overcome it. Kafka and his girlfriend get together. They take it down. You think, yes, it's finally over. We'll either move on to some other bad guy, give me a new idea, do something else. Nope. Ass pull power up, Eldritch being inside, cuts Kafka's arm off. Like, and again, like it was already an incredibly difficult fight. Like it was already like, man, we're barely going to pull this out, which is the way like a good fight should be, right? The good guy should barely win because that feels more dramatic. And now he's just increased in power tenfold, has absolutely annihilated everybody. I hope the only way that this redeems itself is if I read the next chapter and they really do just cut the girl in half. That might be like, okay, that's a bold move. They're
never going to do that.
They're absolutely never going to do that. I don't know what's going to happen. Kafka's going to throw himself in front and he's going to be, mortally wounded but not dead, and they're going to retreat or something. I don't know.
It's going to retreat because ultimately the author has only developed one villain, and the audience only has quote unquote emotional stake for number 9, even though everyone hates number 9 as a villain. So the author's like, okay, instead of developing a completely new villain over 6 months, I'm just going to say this guy is now the Eldritch baddie who's lived inside this guy all along and piggyback off the emotional stake I've already built, kind of a thing, is what I'm assuming, despite it being incredibly unsatisfying sounding, is what he's talking about.
I mean, and we try not to be too... we try to bring things to the podcast that are bad, that we just hate on endlessly. We have complaints about things.
A little bit we do.
And critiques. We have honest critiques of the things we bring, especially some chapter 1s. This Kaiju 8 is fucking awful. It's so bad. Which is so disappointing because the start of it is really good. It starts really well, and then it's just dropped off a series has not dropped off a cliff like this since Moonchild or whatever that thing was. You remember that?
Oh yeah, Earthchild,
where it had like one of the best chapter 1s I've ever read, to be honest. And then chapter 2, it's just dog shit from there on. Anyways, I'm done with that. Kaiju number 8. I'm gonna read one more chapter, and if they don't cut the girl in half, I'm completely done with it. So, tell me what you've been doing, Gautam.
But I again on my pursuit of roguelites to play. I've been playing Shogun Showdown. Incredibly fun. It's like a little bit like chess, is how I feel about it. It's like each move is an action, and you basically just cut your way through a bunch of samurai. It's very fun. It's tactical.
Just the dancing type one where it's like you move left and everybody moves left, or they like move towards you and then you select to attack. I think I've seen people play this. Yeah, it seems like a cool one.
Yeah, it looks like dancing, but it's not like Crypt of the Necro Dancer where you have to like do anything to a beat.
It's just like all actions happen at the same time, I guess is what.
Exactly. All actions happen at the same time on the act. Like, so moving is one action, enemy will queue up an attack, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Either way, super fun game. Anyone who likes tactics types games, like Into the Breach, you will like this. Give it a crack.
Cool. I think that's it, unless you've got anything else to chat about. I think we're gonna get out of here.
Now we're gonna go watch Dan to Dan.
Oh yeah, you might. I don't know if Gautam wants to join me. I might do a solo reaction talking about that. I know it's gonna be good. I've been rereading Dan to Dan. It's so good. So cool.
Make a follow up. Make a follow up to the Dan to Dan video.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh, I guess you can't because this is the first 3 episodes. But yeah, looking forward to it. It'll be freaking fun.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome. Cool. Hey, thanks again, everyone, for listening or watching. Don't forget to leave us feedback, comments, upvote, thumbs up, all that jazz. Check out Twitter and Patreon, linked in the description. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for being with us this week.
See you later.
And don't forget to read more manga.